admit, I don't think we've talked about enough because it is quite a pervasive problem the more that I look into it. So we wanted to bring on some people who are trying to fight this battle here in Los Angeles. They run an organization called TACO, TACO, and they are doing this across Los Angeles, helping people get educated about drug use as well as trying to prevent drug overdoses. So I'll leave it to these two young ladies to explain exactly what it is that they do. Here we go. Guys, we have special guests on the show today, two young women who are leading the charge in combating drug abuse and overdose here in Los Angeles and hopefully nationwide soon. We talk about this not very often on the show, sort of this new introduction of fentanyl into the drug use space and the abuse of that, leading to overdoses, not just here in California, but across America. We've also seen fentanyl crossing the southern border with illegal immigration. And it's a concerning issue that I think we should be talking about a lot more, considering that it is a leading cause of death for people around the ages of 18 to 45. It's something that we need to be talking about and is not being addressed by leadership here in this country. So today, I've brought to you two young women who are leading this charge here in Los Angeles. They are founders of an organization called TACO, Team Awareness Combating Overdose. We have Isabella Gianatiempo and Madeline Hilliard. Thank you guys so much for being on the program.
Thank you so much, Amala. It's great to be here.
So happy to be here.
Oh, it's awesome. This is a pleasure. So let's start off getting at the heart of the issue. What exactly is happening with drug use in America and specifically with fentanyl? I think a lot of people hear that term and they're not super familiar with its usage, what people are doing, and how it's affecting particularly young people in this country.
Yeah, so what fentanyl is it's a synthetic opioid. And why the synthetic part is important is because it can be lab manufactured. So it's much less expensive to produce than opiates like Percocet or Oxycontin or even heroin or morphine. It's very, very inexpensive. At the same time, it's also 50 to 100 times stronger than morphine. So it's extremely potent. And the reason why it's become such an issue is because of that potency. It only takes 2 milligrams. It's about 2 grains of sand worth to kill the average person. And so what we're seeing is it has infiltrated our drug supply in the United States at increasing rates. And the reason why we're here to combat that is because it's causing so many deaths. Of the 100,000 drug-related deaths that there were last year, 64% of them involved fentanyl. So we really want to combat that with a number of methods that we can talk a little bit about, but we're here to say this is an issue. This is something that needs to be addressed. We can't just sweep it under the table because it's uncomfortable to talk about young people using drugs. It's not what parents want, of course, and we understand that, but our primary mission is to make sure that nobody dies of drug use.
Amazing. I love to hear that. And again, yeah, it's something that people are not addressing. And it's really confusing to me as to why, because it truly is a pervasive issue. Like I said, leading cause of death in ages 18 to 45. And we have pounds and pounds of this stuff crossing the southern U.S. border. What is it that led the two of you to recognize this problem here in Los Angeles and think, I need to do something about it? Is this a particular experience or a personal experience that you had? Is it just something that you recognized in your community? What launched this?
It certainly is a personal experience throughout our years at USC, University of Southern California, which I graduated from last year. Issa is a fourth-year undergraduate. We were seeing a number of deaths, over 10 deaths each year due to drug use. Wow. Now, I do want to clarify that the number one cause of drug-related deaths is combined drug use, mixing more than one substance. However, so many of those do involve fentanyl, and it often is accidental ingestion of fentanyl with something like cocaine or something like a fake Percocet pill that leads to these deaths. So we were seeing students overdose on these drugs, which is a completely preventable cause of death. It's the leading preventable cause of death. And so we wanted to start an organization to make our fellow students and make our community aware of how drugs work, what the risks involved are, how to mitigate those risks so that we could decrease overall drug harm.
And one thing I want to say too is that USC wasn't doing anything to help this problem. Like Madeline mentioned, there were just so many deaths. One semester in fall 2019, there were over 9 deaths, 6 that were drug related. And USC really didn't do much and kind of swept it under the rug. And we were really sick and tired of that. And we decided that we wanted to use the knowledge we had with our neuroscience degrees to be able to educate our fellow peers, because people listen to their peers. And so we wanted to use what we'd learned to be able to educate people using the science.
That's an amazing thing that you're doing. I wanted to hit on something that you said, and I think it's very important. You said preventable. That's an extremely important word when we're talking about this. Let's talk about prevention. What can one do to prevent this from happening to them, or the conversations that we're having now in the U.S. using drugs safely and actually being able to check drugs if there's fentanyl in them? Is there something that the average person can do to mitigate this?
Yeah, so our organization prevents drug harms on 3 different levels. So step 1, and it's really our bread and butter, what we got started with was, as I said, we are getting our degrees, or I got my degree in neuroscience. That's the majority of our team. We have a large research team in Taco that produces drug education based purely on academic research. So everything we publish is based on published peer-reviewed literature. And that's step 1. If someone is going to consider using a drug, especially for the first time, we want them to go read this information that we take from the research format and put it into easily digestible plain English. And that way they can fully understand risks, benefits, how they can mitigate it before they choose to do the drug. And that way they have a full awareness of whether or not they want to engage. So that's step 1. Step 2 is if they do want to engage, we encourage everybody to test their drugs for fentanyl, any drug that did not come from your pharmacy. Now, if it's marijuana in California, that does come from a legally regulated dispensary. That can kind of go under the pharmacy category. But anything else outside of that, if it did not come from your pharmacy, it has to be tested for fentanyl. So our organization fundraises for is to provide free or largely subsidized fentanyl test strips. So that way users can test their drugs before they take them to try to ensure that there's no fentanyl in them. Now, the step 3 is that's before they use the drug, right? Say that someone does use the drug and either they didn't test it or they didn't follow the instructions correctly and the test didn't work right, etc. Then they overdose on fentanyl. We also provide free naloxone, otherwise known as Narcan, and train the general public, train our fellow students on how to administer Narcan so that in the event that they do witness an overdose, they know what to do and they're prepared to respond so that no lives need to be lost.
Amazing. What is the general feedback that you're getting on this? I can hear a lot of people just in the back of my mind right now saying, you shouldn't be teaching people how to use drugs safely. And why are you giving them naloxone and Narcan? If they overdose, they overdose. Have you gotten responses like that? And if so, what do you respond to people like that?
Yeah, I mean, it's been frustrating. We always respond by saying that we are a neutral organization. So we neither encourage nor condemn drug use. But if we do go by the old school of thought of just say no to drugs, people are going to continue dying. It's one of the reasons why overdose is the leading cause of death in the United States for those aged 18 to 45. So we're taking a different approach, and we're not going to say you should do this or you shouldn't do that. We're going to provide any and all information and resources needed so people can make their own informed decisions. We don't care if people do drugs. We just want them to do them safely. We don't want people to die from drugs. So we just keep reiterating that it's not about them actually doing drugs. It's about them doing it safely and ensuring that there's no more deaths. We don't need more people dying from this. You can tell people, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it. They're always going to do it. Mm-hmm. We can't prevent that. We can prevent them dying from it. So that is exactly what we're trying to do. We have received, obviously, some of that feedback, but we've also received an overwhelming amount of positive feedback. So people really love what we're doing. Love that we're starting these conversations. We have literally saved hundreds of lives, and it's really rewarding knowing that people are supporting us.
One thing
that's great.
At the end of the day, as hard as it is for people to wrap their heads around the do drugs safely, how we think about it is ultimately every parent just wants their child to wake up in the morning, right? And that's what we're here to ensure.
Right.
Fantastic. One last question before we get into how people can support you and what you're doing. Do you have any positive stories or a singular story that you can share with people to talk about how important it is, the work that you're doing on these campuses and across LA?
Definitely. We actually do get reports back from people who have used our fentanyl test strips and gotten positives on the drugs that they were testing. And what that means is one person getting a positive, that could mean just one person's life was saved, but say that's a bag of cocaine that 8-10 people were going to do that had fentanyl in it, and they found that out before they did it. That's 8 to 10 lives that were saved, that their families, the people who care about them, all of those people got to avoid the suffering of having an overdose come into their life. So we see that also with the Narcan training we do. we have gotten multiple reports back of people actually using that Narcan to reverse an overdose. So it actually is very effective. And overall, what we've seen from the extremely high numbers of overdoses we used to have at USC, those have drastically dropped. There's not been a single fentanyl overdose at USC since our organization started. So it truly is preventable, and we're here to be that proof.
Wow. I really have very little words for you. It is speechless. I'm speechless. So often I hear from people who watch the show and see all of these social issues that are happening right now. And we don't focus on drug abuse enough, but it's something we should definitely be talking about. But they feel helpless, and they feel like there's nothing that we can do, and that the hierarchy is just so structurally set that there's nothing that they can do for their communities. So it's an amazing thing to hear two young women coming forward and saying, you know what? No, we're going to do something about this. If USC is not going to do anything about this, if the government's not going to do anything about this, we will lead the charge in doing that. And I know a lot of people are going to hear this from you all and want to support you. How can they do that?
Yeah, we really appreciate any and all support. There are numerous ways to support us. So I would say the easiest way you can support us is following us on our social media accounts, specifically Instagram. It costs $0. Our handle is at Taco Inc., TACOINC, with an underscore there at the end. That is mainly how, what Madeline said, we distribute all of our research-backed information. So if anyone is curious about what a drug does in the body, what happens when you combine certain drugs, how to use naloxone/Narcan, what it is, we talk about a range of different topics. And you can send it to a friend, you can send it to a family member, you can keep it for yourself. So that's one of the main ways you can support us. We also accept donations via our website at tacoinc.org. You can also Venmo us at Taco Inc. And we can, of course, send you all this afterwards, and you can link it in the description. And there are so many ways to support us. And like Madeline said, we do provide free fentanyl testing strips. They're extremely subsidized. So that is essentially what all of our funding goes to, is buying these thousands of test strips that we are able to give to the community for free. So we appreciate any money we can get. $1 equals one life-saving test strip. So keep that in mind. You could save not only one life, but like Madeline said, it could be up to 10 lives. So we're just one test strip. So we appreciate any help we can get. And it would be super wonderful if, you could follow us on Instagram, follow us on our social media platforms, and potentially donate to us.
And for anyone who's listening who is in the university environment and is thinking to themselves, I wish my school had a program like this, we are opening up chapters of TACO. So if you are interested in starting a chapter of TACO at your school to help distribute test strips, to help distribute naloxone, and really push forward this issue and start to bring down those drastically high overdose numbers for our age group, you can also contact us on our website, tacoinc.org, and help set up a chapter at your school to really start saving lives in your community.
Fantastic. You both are amazing. And I don't need to tell you that, but I'm sure our audience is going to take care of that in the chat down below. Again, all the links and all the ways that you can support them will be down in the description below. Thank you so much for bringing on this powerful message and showing people that they can do something about the problems in their community. It's really been a pleasure having you on.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate you. We appreciate your time.
Great. What great girls.
Yeah.
It is truly a fantastic thing. And I hope that you guys recognize exactly what they said, that USC was experiencing multiple deaths per year. And since their organization has began, they have not had a single one. That is an amazing thing to accomplish, especially at such a young age when your university and the government at large is not doing anything about problems that you've brought to their attention.
Yeah, it's a super important issue, actually.